Welcome to Living Limitless. This series is about conquering shame or fear or stuckness and playing your way to freedom. My name is Andrea Luzon. I am a biofield therapist and legacy liberator. I serve women as they reestablish authority over their life. I guide them and work with them as they step back into their passion, power, and their purpose. And today I have the amazing good fortune to be interviewing Marla Mervis-Hartmann. And Marla, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yay. I
Tell us.
love that. Legacy Liberator. That's so fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll talk more about my journey to that propulsion later, but I'd love for the audience to hear about you.
Great. So I'm Marla Mervis-Hartmann. I'm creator of Love Your Body, Love Yourself, and I'm a Reiki master. And I support primarily women, but people to find freedom with their food and confidence with their body and love for themselves so that they can really step into their life. So a lot of people will come to me with their binge eating. They're not comfortable with their body. They look in the mirror, they don't like what they look like. And I help people find peace with that so they can really start living. Because if any of you out there have had any of those issues, you know how debilitating it is. And that's where I come from. I come from the debilitation of not liking myself, my body, feeling overwhelmed with food, overwhelmed with all of that. And have been able to turn that around and serve other people.
Yeah, I
So here I
loved,
sit.
say again.
So here I sit.
So here you said, I listened to your TED Talk. I think I listened to
Mm,
it twice. I found it really
mm,
inspiring. And I loved how you showed pictures of yourself and the
mm.
snippets of your diary at the time. I'm going to get emotional. Ha! The snippets of your diary at the time, I think every woman on the planet can relate to being at that point, being at some of those points that you shared at some time in their life. And so that really spoke to me. Thank you for being so vulnerable as you
Oh,
shared. Would
yeah.
you be open to sharing like, I'd love to know what inspired you to be on this path of standing for women and our relationships with our bodies?
Well, because of my journey of, I think like so many women, so many like amazing women who have it all together and, they come from even maybe a good home, which I did, still can find themselves in a place of feeling pretty beat up by food, by their body. And that's what happened to me. I did everything. I dieted, I overate, I was an over exerciser, exercise bulimic. I was super healthy, right? We're also super healthy, but under the hood of being super healthy, it wasn't coming from a place of I want to take care of myself and I love myself, so I'm going to feed myself this nourishing food. No, it was from a place of I'm broken, there's something wrong, I need everything to be perfect so that I feel safe in my body.
Yeah.
So I spent many, many years of that in different degrees of it, degrees where I was binging or I was scared to feed myself. But always with the voices in my head that told me that my body wasn't good enough, that I wasn't thin enough, and always fighting food. The fear of food, being around a bunch of people and having food scream at me,
Mm.
all of these ways of taking me out of present moment. And so I really missed out on a lot of my life, even just intimacy and connecting with people, because I was either concerned about what my butt looked like, or I was, concerned about was I eating too much? What are you eating? What am I eating? So I went on a big journey of healing that. And that looked like many different things. It looked like therapy. It looked like Overeaters Anonymous at one point. It looked like a deep dive into my spirituality, which is how I found Reiki. And Reiki was a huge part of my journey of, and for those of you who don't know what Reiki is, it is a spiritual practice and a healing modality that brings in light, brings in healing and unconditional love to heal. And that was super, super helpful. So I just kept going in, right, with this idea of healing this part of me. Tantra, became a Tantra teacher. And then all of a sudden, these these behaviors, these ways of being began to melt away, to at one point I was like, oh my God, I'm good. I've surrendered. I accept myself. And it was in that moment I was like, that's what I'm supposed to do with my life. I'm supposed to use all the tools that I've learned over the years to support others. And I feel so passionate about it because I know the struggle, and I've heard way too many stories, and I've heard way too many women putting themselves down on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I am committed to helping as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. I can hear the passion. I can feel the passion in your
Mm-hmm.
voice. And I'm just so grateful that you're here. I'd like to talk a little bit about triggers. And, for my experience of you is that you've come to a point where you can look back on an eating disorder or a poor relationship with your body, and you can kind of place it backwards behind you in time. What about someone who can be in certain situations and suddenly have that desire to delve back into safety in food or safety in over exercising and like hiding in that, having control over something. So, is there a process or are there anything that works for you when you're having a triggering situation or something you might recommend to a client, a way
Mm-hmm.
they can move through that?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say that I'm not completely healed.
Mm,
I'm in this body, in this society, and I'm still learning. I'm
mhm,
still learning how to love my body more and to listen to my body and be aware of where some of those behaviors can still be triggered. So the process, though, to answer your question, is most people come to me and are like, fix me, I want to lose weight.
mm,
Give me accountability, I want to lose weight, or I want to stop binging. And yes, I work with them very deeply on a practical level, but it's not about the food and it's not about the body. And that is something that, oh my gosh, it's just so easy to blame it on the food. It's like,
mhm.
well, I just keep eating. Well, I mean, I can't control myself, like these, it's like, but there's a reason why. And
Right.
so I am, I go in and down and down and down into the place where this all started,
Mhm.
and to the places where it's so much easier to blame it on the food than to look at some of the things from our past that have triggered this behavior. And some of that is, and most of us, right? We didn't get exactly the love that we were, destined to get as children, even if our parents were amazing, right? So there's certain things and certain ways. It doesn't have to be, this is the thing, it doesn't have to be this huge trauma.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be that. I didn't come from huge trauma, but I did have traumas, right? And all those big and small, they matter. They make us up. And so it's really being with, how do we deal with the coping mechanisms of food, but why are we needing to cope? So we're looking at the why,
Right.
not at the behavior.
And that is bringing me to what I felt compelled to call the series, which is a piece of it is the conquering of shame. And I
Mhm.
feel as though when we start to talk about fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of acceptance, fear of rejection, it's interesting how it's different sides of truly receiving ourselves, truly being received by others and allowing people in. But shame, when I use the phrase conquering shame, what comes up for you in regards to your line of work?
Well, that's what it is. It is about the shame, because what happens is, we'll start here. People diet, right? They're dieting, they're using their willpower. They're like, oh, they're starting to feel good. People are starting to tell them that they look great, and they're willing. And then something triggers them, or life happens, someone's birthday, whatever, they're enjoying life, and then they mess up. they overeat and they can't get back in the swing of the willpower and the no pain, no gain. So then they just go off the wagon, as they would call it. And now they're in shame. They're in shame. Here I am again. I can't believe I'm doing this again. I should know better. I hear that all the time. I should know better than this. I know that that food isn't good. And I know, and I know, and I know. So then they sit and they like in the shame for a while. And then all of a sudden they get this inspiration to do it again. And then they diet and then they do the whole thing again. So I always say the best thing to do to stop the behavior is to stop the shame. We really need to lean into the shame in a loving way. So when there's the, oh, I can't believe I'm here again, and it's like lots of times it comes from like, I can't believe I'm here again. Here I am again, and it's oh, this is so painful. I'm here again. Oh, I feel so for myself. I feel for myself. I love myself and I'm here again and I don't want to be. So there's a difference and there's a way of being in that place and leaning into compassion for ourselves rather than leaning into shame. Because I think Brene Brown says is like shame never creates a positive outcome. So we really need to take that in. If your goal is to lose weight and you're using shame as a way to make it happen, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Right? Because even deep down, it's not about the weight, it's about loving ourselves. So it's like, how can we love the shame? Not the shame, but how can we love the part of us that is feeling ashamed? And honestly, Andrea, I think that's one of the reasons many people, it takes them a while to find me, because there is so much shame, and yet so many of us are feeling it.
Right. So maybe they've tried a dieting program that just addresses food and willpower. And then they try it again and they try it again and then they find you. And then you support them in getting underneath the using of the food as an escape plan or self-punishment plan or control, the false idea of control over our lives.
Exactly. Yeah, very well summed up.
Yeah, well, as one who's been there. Yeah, in my teen years, I think I had a big breakup in maybe it was my junior year of high school, had a big breakup and just lost interest in food for, I don't know, a few weeks and went down a size or something. And then all of these, I was very, very sad. And then all of these compliments started showing up. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, what is this about? And then I started getting happier, started having a normal relationship with food again. And then the size went back to normal. And then that is when that was when my trauma happened. And interestingly, it was what my mind did when the compliments stopped coming. Mm-hmm. That I began playing this game with food and control it took a couple of years to come back out of that. Like during my college years, I was able to get underneath that and detach from that, creating, like having the body image and the control over food. It was so interesting how that ended up giving me, like, 'cause it was binging and purging. Mm-hmm. And that ended up like having for at least a year and a half, it was, oh, this is a way I can control my life and feel like there's something that I can just be totally OCD about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, the false idea of control, right? If you said so many good things in there that I want to share about, is that food is so easy. No one can fully control us when it comes to our food. Mm-hmm. And so we have that sense of like, well, you may control that parent or that or life or whatever, but this is mine. Mm-hmm. My body is mine, and I'm going to control what it looks like until we can't control it anymore and it backfires. But you said something about not being sick and then getting accolades on that. And I think that is really important for us as a culture to realize when we are complimenting someone on they look great. Oh, you lost weight.
Mhm.
I just was sharing that with a client the other day of, she had lost some weight because she had COVID and people were commenting. And I know for myself, I noticed that I liked being sick, and
Mhm.
almost on this subconscious level was calling that in. I think there's a quote on Prada that in Devil Wears Prada where she says, "I'm one flu away from my ideal weight," right?
Yes, I remember
Remember
that.
that? Yeah. And so we we need to look at like, where's our inspiration from? And I had to have a sit down with myself, and it's like, no, our body and our body's weight comes from a place of fully living. I want to be the weight that I am when I'm fully living life, not when I'm stuck in my room and no one can be around me anyways, but I'm lost weight and I feel good about that. Like that's not what we're going for, people, right?
Yeah. That's landing on so many levels for me right now. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's the other part of the title of the series is play your way to freedom. And I like the OCD piece I talked about and the control, controlling our intake of food or our exercise or drinking or something when we're exacerbating control. I feel as though we're doing a 180-degree turn. We're turning our back. I feel as though we're turning our back on playfulness, joy, and freedom. Like we're
Mhm.
just like, oh, I'm just gonna go be an automaton with this thing, exercise, food, my body, something like that. And so how do you stay in the vibration? And I guess staying in a vibration feels a little controlling, but how, when you feel yourself wandering away or maybe turning, like I was saying, a 180-degree turn, when you feel yourself turning away from that fulfill living your most fulfilled life, your joy, your freedom, your courage, your playfulness, do you have practices that support you in staying in that range of vibration?
Yeah, well, I think what happens, I think when we start to feel freedom and we start to feel good, say in our bodies or just in life in general, then when we start to not feel good again, there can be a panic,
Hmm.
and they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, how did I get here? What happened?" And it's knowing that we're always in a cyclical pattern. And it's also being able to realize, okay, how long did I stay? So if we take negative body image, which I've lived most of my life in the healing process, I would be in positive body image for, let's say, a few months. And then all of a sudden it would, like I would say, would just hit me off the side of the head. And all of a sudden I'm in it. And then I started to peel back the layers. I'm like, no, I was in it back here when I made that choice to exercise that little bit of food I made away, or engage in a conversation that was about the body and not a nice way, right? Like I made that decision. And so from the awareness, I can now be like, oh, red flags right here.
Mm.
Oh, right here it is. Right. And that can show up in our self-care if we're not even talking about body and food. We're just talking about living life. It's like if you're always meditating and then you stop for a long time, there's something to notice. How am I feeling here? How am I feeling here? So I feel like I have so many tools to keep me in alignment, whether
Mhm.
it's movement practices, yoga practices, breath work, different types of meditation. It's like sometimes it's like, what do I do? I have so many things,
So
right?
many options.
And the Reiki. And so I feel like having this arsenal
Mhm.
of things to do has really supported me. And not even just the arsenal of tools that I can do solo, but the arsenal of people in my life that I can surround myself with,
Mhm.
that when I do get out of alignment or I'm stuck or whatever, that I know for this issue, I go to that person, and for this issue, I go there, and they can bring me back. So I do feel like community is a tool in its own that has really helped me, because we need people, right? We need
Yeah.
each other.
And that's part of what I want to create here is women, and if there are men watching, just knowing that there are other people that are on the journey of
Mm.
reawakening to their authentic voice reawakening to your innate wisdom instead of
Mhm.
listening to media and politics and all the things. Maybe a message that you misheard a parent or teacher or peer say, something that landed in your body and really hurt. That there are other people who are on the journey of looking at that pain or that misbelief and getting in touch with it and giving it space. And I loved what you started with. You were saying notice. Simply starting with I'm feeling off. I'm feeling out of the vibration that I want, that I'm calling in my life. I feel like it's really off today, or it's been off for a couple of days, or for a while. And then what is different right now in my patterns that's different from times that I've felt more aligned with who I want to be and who I really am. And I love that, just simply noticing what's off. I practice a modality, an energy quantum healing modality called reconnective healing. And when a few days have gone by that I don't have a client, I have found that even 5 minutes of envisioning someone and just, simply being in an empty room and envisioning someone that I'd love to just communicate energy alignment with, that just being in that frequency, I'll start getting downloads of just wisdom. And it's interesting how quickly I'll feel connected just to me being my best self
Mhm.
than I had been just a few moments before being in that session, even though it's just a
Yeah.
donated session. And sometimes I have twins, and really early in the morning while they're sleeping, sometimes I'll just explore, 5 minutes over each child. And it's not, I know you know this because of how you just described Reiki, but it's really just being in this bubble of unconditional love.
Mhm.
It's not a giving, it's more like I get to be the antenna, and they're also an antenna, and the universe is just in communication with us.
Yeah, that's
It's
beautiful.
yeah. So I found that even can pick up my vibration. It's awesome to
Yeah,
receive as well. To trade sessions with another healer is really magical. Or just,
it is so
getting a
good.
massage or all the
Yeah,
other fun things that we can do for ourselves.
yeah. And also knowing that we're not always supposed to feel good,
Mm.
right? Like I can say, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's wrong. I'm in a funk. I'm crying all the time." It's like that's okay. It's not about us like always in this high, like I love life and everything's great. It's like, no, I'm tender. No, I'm angry. No, I'm in this place, and this is where spirit is guiding me to go in, because there's some place that I need to meet myself. And so I find that when I get into these places, the less I judge myself for being in them, and not even like I'm trying to get out by doing all these tools, but I'm actually using it to support myself,
Mm.
which goes back to what we're talking about with the shame. It's like if we're in a place we don't want to, like, this is wrong and I shouldn't be here. It's like, this is where I am, and how can I support myself in a loving way? How can I actually go into it even a little bit more?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for bringing us back to, not just doing a spiritual bypass and yeah, like rejecting the feeling. I liked what you said. So I sometimes do the spiral of like shadow, light. Speaking of light, the sun is like coming out and going in. I don't know if you can see that. I'm in a golden room right now, I guess.
Oh,
So
nice.
sunshine everywhere. But yeah, I love the idea of, the spiral of the heroine's journey, and imagining like, like this is a line, and, we're up in the light, and then we get to do the work, and we're up in the light and we get to do the work. When I say heroine's journey, or when you were mentioning that it's sort of a cycle, would you tell us more about that?
Um, hmm. Well, sometimes I'm thinking about like I'm thinking about how that cycle of being feeling in the light, and that cycle of going in can be not in like a month or
Mm,
even a year, but can be on a daily basis. You know, like, for example, I'm in my bed and I'm sitting and I'm meditating and I feel so good. And then I get out of bed and I'm with my family and all of a sudden I'm like in this grouchy mood, right? I'm like, well, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, well, like really meeting myself there. And it can be such a surprise. Right. And so these moments of going through like, well, how can I meet myself in the truest form that I'm in right this moment, right? And some of that is about letting go of the idea that I need to even be, you know, in the light.
Mm-hmm.
It's about letting that all go and just meeting myself fully. And I do feel like the older I get, my birthday is in a couple of days. It's like the older I get, the more I feel like there's more wisdom, there's more understanding, there's more of these cycles where I'm like, oh, I've been doing that for a long time and I'm only becoming aware of it right now. And I think that happens when we can really kind of pull ourselves back and look at ourselves without having judgment and looking from a place of like, I want to be a better person, or I want to, as you were saying, like, you know, be this limitless, you know, having this legacy of ourselves. Like when we come from that place, like I want to be able to share things with the world, then we're able to look at ourselves without judgment, but also being able to say, that behavior isn't good for anyone involved.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I loved what you said about the daily. And then when you were saying that I feel like you were talking about layers. I was just envisioning, I know people say an onion. I like to say a lotus flower, but as you're moving through your spiritual awakening, or you're just coming back to your authentic self, sometimes I like to think of it as a lotus flower that's opening in various layers. Like there's still that bud in the center that has more to show you about what's possible for you. And
Mhm.
I feel as though sometimes we get to a next level, and the universe just kind of says, hey, Andrea, you're ready to awaken to this aspect of yourself that you were not aware of until this moment.
Right.
You're like, what? Yeah, you're
Mhm.
ready to go a bit deeper.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't feel very good.
Yes, that's very true. That's so
Mm.
true. Allowing ourselves to get uncomfortable, and like you were saying, not to go into shame when we are feeling that friction. It's totally lands.
Yeah. It reminds me, I was a client that I just had earlier today, we were talking about actually leaning into the discomfort. So we are talking about compulsive eating
Mhm.
and how when we compulsively eat or we binge or we have, you know, emotionally eating, there's a motor that runs in the body, right? There's like a thing, you know, it's like there's something going and the body is wanting food. And people think that they're supposed to be able to stop that in that moment. And in my experience, the train has already left the building, right? It is like, it's happening, the food is happening, the compulsiveness is happening. And to let that be, and yet to sit, and I've done this with myself, I will sit in meditation and away from the food later on or the next day or whenever, sit in meditation and get myself very connected. And then call upon that feeling of compulsiveness, call upon that upset or that whatever that feeling is. And this is, as you're saying, the heroine's journey to meet ourselves. But when we can sit and we can be with that feeling and feel it and give it a space, give it a container where it's like, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to allow myself to feel this. Because that's the reason people compulsively eat or emotionally eat is there's too much feeling. So it may just be a minute or two, or maybe it's a little bit longer because some of these sensations and feelings can feel very scary. And that's why having a coach is a really good idea or someone to guide you. But so when we can slow down and be with ourselves in that way, we can have an awareness of why it is that we are compulsively eating.
Mm.
So as I was going back to in the beginning, it's not about the food, it's about the feelings that we're having and kind of separating those and sharing love to ourselves.
Mhm. Wow. That feels like a huge kernel of wisdom, like a beautiful process right there that you shared with us. Thank you. Do you
You're welcome.
recommend journaling after that or somehow letting it
Yeah.
move or integrate?
Yeah, that's always a good idea. Always a good idea to maybe move your body a bit.
Mhm.
You know, it's so nice to hold ourselves and, you know, hug ourselves and squeeze, you know,
Mhm.
squeezing. If you do a practice energy healing, putting your hands on yourself.
Mhm.
Sometimes like the interesting is as I'm sharing with this, I can still feel that place in me. So that I can feel like I want to, there's like a groan or like there's like a vocal, like vocalness that wants to come out, right? So, or sitting, like you said, in journal, what does that voice have to say?
Mhm.
What does that emotion, that feeling inside of me, what does it want? What does it need? So those are really good questions that you could journal about. And
Wow.
so once again, when you're separating it from the food, you can make so much more headway and some of those behaviors will just kind of melt away.
Mm. Wow, because you're giving a voice to that feeling or that whatever that basic something defense mechanism that
Yeah.
came forward in your life at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're
Wow.
dealing with you're coping differently.
Yeah. Coping in a new way.
Mhm.
Thank you for that so
Yeah.
much. Wow, I feel like we've touched on the shame, we've touched on the playfulness and freedom. Is there anything that you would want to share? And I know you also have a free gift for our audience as well.
Yes. So one of the things that I love to share with women and I love to offer you is that when you're in the world and you're out and about, that you celebrate all bodies. See, our mind and what diet culture has taught us is that that body is ideal and that body better fix itself. And I look better than her and I don't look as good as her. And so the way the eyes are like judging and filtering and am I okay? Am I safe? Am I not? And so when we change that and we play a game, the game being, I'm going to celebrate everyone's bodies. Oh, look at her eyes. Look how tall she is. Look how, look how voluptuous. Look at all that flesh, like really celebrating
Mhm.
all shapes, all sizes, all ages. We
Mhm.
can begin to retrain the way that we see bodies. And then when we look in the mirror, we can look in the mirror and we will begin to like ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is something that I stumbled on upon myself because I was noticing how critical I was of other women. I'm like, that is not okay, Marla Mervis-Hartmann, right? That is not okay. So I started doing that and I was doing it because I wanted to not be critical of others, but I realized it helped me to be not critical of myself.
Mm.
And so it's a really lovely practice to play with. So I invite you to check that out and then let me know. Please let me know.
Thank you.
I'd
I
love to
love that.
hear.
I have I have twins, a daughter and a son.
Mhm.
And I remember, I actually put this into an email and sent it to all of our friends at one point, but it was about not like it was amazing how often it was, she's cute. You look so pretty. Like that's like the cutest outfit. And so I started looking into that kind of like, what are we
Mhm.
reinforcing when we use phrases like that? And so I really have been working on saying to my kids, "You look so ready to learn today." Because
Ah, lovely.
yeah, you look so smart today. Like, oh my gosh, I can tell you are really proud of yourself for picking out your own clothes. You are glowing. And those are about the main three. I
Oh, Andrea, that's so good.
you.
That's so good because I feel like I've shared that people don't tell people, don't just say to kids about what they're wearing, but I love your examples.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
It's
good.
taken practice. It really has.
Yeah.
And well, and they're almost 8. So it's
Right.
been 8 years of just really, and I hear my husband sometimes saying like, "You look so cute," or even the good job. And maybe you can offer something, but with homework and projects, it's always like, "That's so nice. You did such a good job." And part of our culture is also this obsession with results, obsession with working.
Mhm.
And in a way, we shame people. A lot of if someone hasn't worked for a while, or if someone's on unemployment, or if you don't have 100 likes on every single post or something like that, that's almost like work is also its own unique example of shame, or shaming ourselves. And so even with schoolwork or projects, I've really tried my best, or I really get to keep practicing. I can tell, or even asking the question, are you proud of your work? Like, do you feel like you did
Yes,
your
that's a
best?
perfect one.
Yeah, I'm so
Yes,
proud of you for doing your best. Or when you're looking at your art, I can tell that you are really proud of how you showed up for yourself.
those are perfect examples. I love that, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you. And I get to keep practicing because it's so easy to slip back into how we grew up, or how we were trained, or media, how we see conversations portrayed in television shows or movies.
And I do think that that's how we do change and we shift it for the next generation.
Yeah.
How you're speaking and what you were saying is exactly how we do that.
Yeah.
That's how we can make so much leverage.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I love that you send an email, send it out to everyone and let
Yeah.
them know.
I was totally that mom. Like they were like still in diapers, or like maybe just coming out
Right.
of diapers. I was like, let's not do the "you're pretty." Please stop
Right.
calling my daughter pretty. Or just, like come up with something. Let's be more original, you know.
Right.
Let's
Come on, people.
Yeah, let's kind of, expand beyond the 1960s, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, tell us of I believe that we have something lined up for
Yes.
sharing. Okay, go
Yes.
ahead.
It's my body love meditation. So it is about getting connected to yourself and your inner self so that you can love yourself from the inside out. And I think you're all really going to love this meditation. It's so beautiful, and it's just such a wonderful, easy way to be guided into a place of love for yourself where you can let go of what you look like and you can feel yourself and be connected. So check it out. And then also let me know how it goes.
Thank you. Well, Marla Mervis-Hartmann, I am just truly honored that you stepped in with us today and really supported us in loving our bodies for exactly where we are on our journey, because your journey is perfect, whether you're wherever you're at, it is where you are. And we can't get to point B if we don't embrace point A, you know, that's how I feel. And so I
Absolutely.
feel as though you've shown us your way of living limitless, and how we conquer shame and play our way to freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Till next time.
Yes.